So how do we make a Japanese stab-bound book? Well, hello and welcome to this Fotospeed video with me, Tim Jones. Today what we're going to be looking at is Japanese stab bindings and how we go about making a book using this technique. Now, in this video, I'm going to concentrate mainly on making the hardcover and actually binding the book and actually punching the holes and making the stitch as well. Now, I will touch on how we go about making the layouts and things like that, but I will make another video solely looking at how we go about making layouts within Lightroom for these type of books. So this is the practical side today, really. So we're going to be looking at making the holes and stitching the book and everything that goes along with it. Now, really exciting news here at Fotospeed that we have a new paper and it is called Art Smooth DUO. Now, I've been given a box of it here to make some stab bound books, and we are launching it at the photography show, which was last weekend. And yeah, it's a great, lovely paper. Now, I've really enjoyed printing on it. It's a lovely smooth paper. So it's dual-sided as well, which makes it even more versatile for bookmaking. But it's 210 grams. Now that sounds a lot for books, to be honest. However, it is quite a thin paper. It's a heavy weight, but it's a thin type of a fine art paper. Absolutely wonderful, lovely paper, lovely smooth finish to it. Almost has, it's just very slightly off-white, but also gives a really punchy colour and lovely black and whites and things. So it kind of suits everything, to be honest. I've been really impressed with this. Now, the really big selling point of Art Smooth as well is it has a guaranteed grain direction. So on our sheet of paper, so grain direction can either run from top to bottom or left to right. So we've got short grain and long grain. Art Smooth is guaranteed on the short grain side. Now, why is this important for bookmaking? Because it folds nice and easy. Whenever you fold a sheet, say, against the grain, it all goes, you don't get a very nice fold and you get very uneven marks and things, and it just doesn't look very nice at all. Whereas with Art Smooth, as you're folding around the short grain, it's going to fold perfectly with the grain of the paper and give you a lovely, lovely bend in the book as well. So it's going to give you a really nice kind of fold in the book, and it'll just look lovely and neat and tidy as well, which is really important when we're looking at bookmaking. So like I said, this paper was released last weekend at the photography show. Comes in A4, A3 and A2 and is guaranteed short grain. Really nice. So I'm really happy. I'm really looking forward to actually trying to get some A2 sheets and making a really big Japanese stab bind book. But before we go any further, just please don't forget to subscribe. Just click that subscribe button and also stick around to the end of the video because we will have a 15% voucher that will give you 15% off a lovely Art Smooth DUO papers. Okay. So let's look at what a Japanese stab bind book is and why it's a really great book to actually make yourself as a photographer or artist or illustrator. So here was a book I made a couple of weeks ago. Japanese bound, hard bound with pages inside, all on Art Smooth. Looks absolutely brilliant. What makes this a Japanese book is because of the binding at the top here. The holes are made using a Japanese punch like this one here. So you actually stab it down onto the page and it makes the holes for you. Now, the stitchings can be as simple or as elaborate as you want. There are actually patterns online and people put in their own kind of combinations. You can put star patterns on here and things. I've gone for something a bit simple today, just a normal loop stitch just going round, with a little bit of a posh corner at the top here. So an extra hole, just to add a little bit of kind of a flourish or something, I suppose, in here, just to keep it nice and simple. Now, we're making an A4 book. So I'm going to make a hardcover as well for this. So this is made just by getting some card and we can fold it over and we'll just make a nice cover. And the really important thing is we need to make the hinge in here as well. Now for the cover, I actually use our matte ultra paper because it works really nice and takes the glue and things really nicely, and we don't get any usual rippling or anything on here. So that's what we're going to do, make one of these books. I've got another one here with a slightly different stitch in here as well. This is a bit more of a test book I made a few weeks ago. So a lot more stitches in here. It takes a little bit more time to get those in there. But again, made on the Art Smooth paper and also with a white inner as well. So that's what we're going to do. Okay, so let's dive in, and we will first of all start by making the hard cover of the book because that needs to dry. And then we'll go about printing off the layouts and actually putting the book together and how we go about stitching the book. Okay, so let's dive in. Let's make this hardcover front and back to start with, and then we'll leave that to dry and then we'll make the rest of it. Okay. Now, before we go any further, I should talk about the equipment we need, or the items we need to actually kind of make the book. Now, the first one of these is you will need a Japanese punch. Now, these can be bought quite cheaply, actually. I believe Amazon do them and things. We actually do them in a little book kit as well. If you sign up to one of our academy classes, you actually get one of these as well, which is part of the class. They have different ends, so they come in different sizes as well, so you can just change how big you like the hole to punch. Now, the other thing you need is some thread as well to actually make the bindings. I use normally waxed thread. It's normally jewelry line, to be honest, and it comes in different sizes and lengths and things like that, but again can be usually sourced quite cheaply. The main thing is a ruler as well. Must have a ruler because we're going to be measuring quite a lot. But also, we obviously, to do the stitching as well, to go along with the line, we also need some needles. I use blunt end needles. I use straight ones. Some people you may see online use curved ones as well. It's just what you're used to. Also, we need a brush and some PVA glue for the cover. So we're going to be sticking the picture to the board as well. And also we need some board. This is just some 2mm board that I've got quite cheaply, again offline. You can use actually offcuts of mount board and things like that, absolutely perfect for that. But also the most important thing as well is obviously some lovely Fotospeed paper, and I'm going to be using our Art Smooth DUO, that new paper I've just talked about. So those are the things we really need. There's not much else apart from that. So nice and simple, to be honest, and it's a really nice relaxing process. So let's dive in and make the actual covers for the books first with that hinge in there. Then we'll go about actually punching the holes and binding the book together. Okay, let's dive into the cover. Now for the cover, what we need to do is get one of the boards, and I'm going to mark it up. So we're making an A4 book, which is the size of this sheet here. This is actually one of the spreads from the book. So what I want to do though is I don't want to make it A4, I want to make it slightly bigger. So what I'm going to do is put 1 centimetre border all the way around the outside of this. So the pages can actually sit in the covers and sandwich between them quite nicely. So we've always got that little bit of overlap on the cover there. So what I've done is I've measured 320mm on the long side and 230mm on the short side. So I've added 1 centimetre top and bottom and left and right as well. So we get a nice even border, as you can see, just all the way around the outside here. Now, what we also need to do is, while we're here, is we need to just mark up where our stitch is going to be. So for the hardcover, what we need to do is we're going to allow a 1 centimetre, obviously, border. So this is where the edge of our page is going to start. So I'm just going to put a 1 centimetre line down one side of the page. I've picked the left-hand side down here, just so I can draw a line down here. And then I've got my 1 centimetre. So then I've got my 1 centimetre here. So this is where the actual page of the book is going to start. Now, on my layouts here, So what I've allowed for is a 30mm stitch. So this is really important we allow this so that when we're stitching, the picture appears in the middle, or kind of in the middle. So I've allowed that in the layout. So what I need to do though, is I'm just going to do my 1cm here, and then just do another 3cm in on this one. So now I have this line here is where my actual holes are going to go. So this is where the holes are going to go on this line here, just down here. So this is where the actual loops and all the threads are going to be kind of put in there. Also on here, what I need to allow for is the hinge as well, to go backwards and forwards. So I'm just going to do another 1cm here, and another 1cm back here as well, just from that other line. And this area is going to be the hinge. So this whole area in here, just in here, that's going to be cut out, and that will become the hinge of the book. So backwards and forwards. So it will just fold back on itself. Okay. And that is our hardcover effectively. I would say also, I like to extend the lines, but also on this side here, I'm going to have a little bit of wastage, but I'm going to actually turn this into a template, and we'll look at how we go about that in a second. So let's get this cut, and then we can actually look at how I go about sticking this down and folding it all over and making a lovely hardcover. Then I can put that to one side and let it dry. Now I should say we need 2 of these. So we'll use this first one as a template for the second one. Now, it's up to you. You can put a hinge in both, so make this line in both, or like I like to do is just have a straight hard cover on the back, just to make it a little bit more sturdy. Completely up to you. Have an experiment with both. But let's get this cut out and then we'll go from there. Okay, so here's the picture printed. I printed it on A3+, just so I've got a little bit of an overlap. Now I'm going to use the board that hasn't actually got the cut out of it here for the hinge, just so I can get a good size. And I've done 2 copies of this A3+. So then all I need to do is just position it where I'd like it to be on the cover. And then very simply, I'm just going to trim off the corners. Now I'm going to make sure I've got an equal triangle, and then I'm just going to go over a little bit, just so we got a little bit of extra. I've got a couple of mil just left over there. And then I'm just going to go round and do this on each of the corners. And then we'll be ready to stick it down. Now, on the bigger end here, I'm just going to just trim it off so it's just nice and square. And there we have our template ready to stick down. Okay, so now we're ready to stick this down. I've pulled some glue out onto just a piece of paper here. I've got my brush ready. And then I've got my brush ready. So the first thing we need to do is just turn this upside down like this. And then I'm just going to stick the main board to start with, the back. So that is just going to go on here like this. So I need to just apply some glue. Now I'm going to put the glue on the board. So I'm just going to put it over like this. And then just be very careful. We don't want to get any glue anywhere apart from on the back of this board, because it can just create a bit of a mess on the front. So we just need to be a bit careful on here. I put it on here and just put the, because it doesn't matter if any of the glue goes onto this part or here. So can just stick down. I'll do quite a thin level to put quite a bit of glue on. Might need a little bit more, so just put perhaps a little bit on there. And I'm just going to brush all this out, because what we don't want to happen is any cockling or anything. So if we just brush it out with a brush, that should just help with any of that horrible cockling and things that we don't want on our page. Here we are. Right, so that's all glued up. Make sure we get right to the edges as well. Get a little bit in there as well. So we've got all the glue. There we go. And now all we'll have to do is just turn it over and just position it so our corners are there. So we've got a nice, well, I'm just trying to just position it. A good thing about using PVA glue is you can just position it a little bit, and there we go. Okay, now that's glued down there. Okay, the next thing to do is we're going to just fold these ends over, but there's a little trick to do first, and that is just on the ends here, just get the knife on the ends here, just score just out from the edge of the board. And this is so we can tuck that little bit of the board under, so we get a nice neat corner. Okay, so let's just start with this end here. Again, just apply a bit of glue, and we can apply glue to both parts here, just a little bit. And then I'm just going to get my brush and then just brush along these edges. Make sure we get right to the edges on here, so we can fold this over nice and neatly. There we go. Okay, so now we just need to fold this over, but before we do, we'll just fold these little corners in, just with a knife very slightly in here, and on this edge here as well. And then we're just going to go round and we're going to do this on each of the edges. So we'll just fold this over, and always remember to press, don't ever rub it, just press it down. Just press it. There we are. Now it doesn't matter if we got a little bit of glue on here, because this bit is going to be covered with another sheet. So it's not the end of the world if you do. But that is our first kind of edge here. And then we just need to go round and do this on each of these edges. Okay, so here's the back cover. Not too bad. What I've done though is I've also put a piece of paper in here. I've put it in a little bit from this end, just because this is where the stitch is going to go. So I can get away with just pushing it a little bit here, and it just covers all the nasty little bits in there and things. So all we need to do now though is put this under some heavy weights, some paper boxes or something, just so it dries, and then we can actually just have it all dried, and then we can start to stitch it. But let's do the front cover, because that's a little bit different, because we've got a hinge to put in there. So let's have a look at that and how we go about actually kind of making that. Okay, so I've got all the parts for the front cover. So the first thing I need to do is, obviously we just trimmed this cover down so it's all nice and ready for us. So first thing to remember though is this side here is where the hinge is going to be. So first thing I always do is get my sheet and place it in, then get the cutout bit and put that in as well, correct way round, so it's about like that. And then I will put in also the hinge as well, where the stitches are going to be. So those are the parts I need to get right. I always like just to turn it over to just double check that my hinge is on the right side, which I believe it is, and also the right way up as well, which it is. It's going to open like that, so that's fine. Perfect. So then what we can do is exactly the same process as we did before, actually. We need to just line everything up and then just start sticking it down. So we can either start by doing the big board first or the little bits. So it's completely up to you. So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to pop this bit off, just flip it upside down, put some glue on, and then I'm just going to stick all these parts down. The part I'm not going to glue though is the cutout here. And I'm going to leave it there though, just so we can get a nice kind of accurate bend to where this should be. So let me just glue this all down and then we will go from there. Okay, now with both of those boards now glued down, very simply just take out the cutout and then we have our area for our hinge to go. Okay, and then what we do is exactly the same as before. What we need to do is we need to just fold all these over. Make sure we just cut a little bit out just as we go through here. Go, and in here as well. And then we just fold over the pointy end or the triangle into there just to make ourselves a lovely neat corner. So we can just do that. There we are. In here. Okay, and then very simply, all I'm going to do is I'm just going to now just fold everything over. So here we have the covers. I've got my front cover here with the hinge in, and I've also got the back cover as well. Now what I need to do is put these under a weight just so they can dry nice and flat, so all the moisture and things from the glue can all be kind of got rid of and things. So I'm just going to leave them for a few hours under there. But in the meantime, what we can do is we can look at the template and how we actually go about stitching the book as well. And we make all the holes in the pages and everything as well. So let's do that. Let's dive in and have a look at actually how we start making holes in the pages and what we need to think about while we're doing that. Okay, so I've had a tidy up and I've got rid of all the nasty glue and things that can cause us some problems when we're making the covers. So everything is just weighted down and it's going to be just wait to dry a few hours and then we can start stitching. But while we're waiting, I want to make a template. Now this is going to be where I'm going to punch the holes, and it's going to be nice and easy that I can just lay over each sheet of paper and punch the holes through, just these predetermined holes here. Now to do this, I'm just using a little bit of offcut from the card when we were making our covers, and it's the right height, which is absolutely perfect. It doesn't really matter about the kind of the width of this because we're only going to be working on a small piece of it. But don't throw these away. Especially don't throw the offcuts away. Always use them for templates, but also don't throw away your templates because you can always reuse them and keep them in a folder somewhere. So it saves you a lot of time when you're looking to punch holes in the future. Okay, let's have a look at how we go about just creating a template for my A4 book. Okay, so here is my template. Now, this is going to be the width of the cover. So the first thing we need to do is just decide, come in 1 centimetre. So I've just measured 1 centimetre on either end and made a little mark, just so I know where my page is actually going to be. Because what we don't want to do is put a hole in this area outside of this, because it's not going to be going through any of the pages and clamping anything together. So we want to make our stitch within this area just in here. The next thing I'm going to do is measure in 30 centimeters, because that is what I decided where my stitch line was going to be. So I'm just going to 30, just going to measure in 3 centimeters or 30 mil just in there, and then I'm just going to draw a line, and then that will be where my holes are going to go. So that's going to be where my holes are going to go. Okay, so the next thing we need to do is actually determine at what interval these holes are going to go. It's going to roughly be every 23 mil. So put my ruler on the end here, and then I'm basically just going to mark 23. So 1, 2, 3. On that line there, just marking 23 mil. Just keep going until I get to the end. And make sure, just take your time and make sure they're nice and even, because this is going to be the most visual part of the book. So it's worth just getting it right and making sure we just get it right, just so we don't have to redo anything. But the beauty of doing it on a template and not actually on the pages of the book is that we can always go back if we make a mistake. Now I'm also going to make a little posh corner. So just on my book here, you'll see I've put an extra hole just to make kind of a little bit of a feature there. So what I need to do to that is just make sure my ruler's down, and then I'm just going to measure. So I'm just going to measure just in the middle. So 11.5 mil. Bit rough, but not too bad. And then I'm just going to draw a line just down there. And then I'm going to measure 15 mil, which will be in the middle, just there. And then I'm just going to draw a line just with that mark there, just across. And that is going to be my other hole, just where this cross here. I'm just going to do the same on this side, but I'm just going to use this line here, just there. And then I can then use the 11.5 back there. And then we can just draw a line down there. And that is where my other hole is going to be. Just there. Okay, so there we have our punch, to be honest, our holes. So we're not going to put a hole here. So I always just make a very nice visual mark, because we drew that line down. We're just not going to put one there. But then what we need to do is just going to start punching. Now, the punching of this is nice and easy because we've got our Japanese punch here. What we're going to do is we've actually got a 3 mil diameter punch in here. So I'm just going to then, very simply, all we do is go over the marks and start on one end if you'd like, and then we just push it down. And it may take a couple of times, just because of the card, it may take a couple of punches. But you can see there, I've got my first hole. And basically, we'll just go through the rest of the template, making those holes. Okay, so I've got my template and I've got my first page here. So what I'm going to do is just line up my template just with the edges here, like that. Then I'm going to get my punch again with a 3 mil punch in there. And very simply, I'm just going to go through these holes. And then we have my first page punched. So put this to one side and then we'll just do the others. Okay, So now the cover is dry, we just need to punch the holes in it. So what we need to do is just lay the template over the book. And what I'm going to do though is I'm just going to bring it forward very slightly, just to about here. So then I know that my holes are just before there and just over here a little bit, just so I know that when I put the pages in, they are going to be recessed very slightly. Okay, so all the holes are punched in the book here. So I've got my covers and then I've got the pages all inside, all ready to be stitched. So what I need to do is, first of all, just break the book down very slightly so then I can actually start the stitching process and I can show you how to do it. Another thing to do, always wash your hands as well, so when there's not any kind of grubbiness on the cover or anything like that. So let me get everything ready and then we'll actually start the stitching process. So here's all the book. Like I said, I punched all the holes, we've got everything done. So the first thing we need to do is, I'm just going to put the cover to one side for a minute, is I just want to line everything up. So if I just tap it down, it should all line up, and I'll just use an awl just to push through, just to make all the holes line up nicely, which should be about there, which is fine. Now, if I do the same with the back cover as well, then I can just make sure all those holes are just lining up for me, which they are. Then I'll just do the front cover as well. Now this just makes it a lot easier when we come to stitch it together. So I'll just make sure, just line those up by eye. So what we can do now is just get a couple of clips and a little bit again of the offcut of cardboard that we were using. So now everything's lined up, what I'm going to do is just get a couple of pieces of cardboard and I'm just going to bend them basically, so I can now put a clip just at the end here, and I do this and I put these on just so it doesn't move, and also the cardboard is there, doesn't actually pinch the book, so we don't get any marks on there as well. So I just usually put a couple, that seems to do the trick for me. You can put more if you want. The next thing we need to do is decide on the colour of our thread. I've gone for a nice blue in here. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to measure this. So what we need is 6 lengths. So I just need 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, and then I'm just going to do a 7th just in case. So we've got 7 lengths of thread there, and I'm just going to cut it off at the end there. And then we can just put that to one side because that's all done. Now we do have a needle here as well. So this just needs to be thread on to that end of the thread here. And we'll just move that out of the way. And then on the back of our book, I just want to go through one of the middle holes, just this one here. And then I'm just going to pull the thread all the way through. So I've got a little bit of thread just poking out there. Then what I'm going to do is just flip it back round and just hold that thread in place on the back with my fingers there. Okay. Now we need to do a series of loops. So we can go either way across. I'm going to go down this short edge here. So I'm just going to go down and I'm just going to put a loop in this part here. Now sometimes the thread can just get a little bit tangled, so we just take our time to just untangle that so we don't have any nasties in there. And then we'll just pull that so it's nice and tight, and again just pop your finger on. Okay, the next thing we need to do is do a loop around the spine. So we're going to go back through the same hole, here, and just push through and pull the thread through. That should now form a second loop, one going horizontally and one vertically. And then we just copy the process and repeat the process along the line. So we're going to go back through the hole here from the other side this time to create a horizontal loop on the back side. Then with our thread, we're just going to loop back round up through the book to create our horizontal loop. And then we have two there. And the idea is what we're going to do is we're going to do another one here now. So we're going to do another one here, and then we're going to get to the end and I'll show you what to do. Because then at the end, we loop back and fill in all these gaps that have been created here. So let me just get to the end. Okay, so we just make sure we get to the end. And when we got to the end, what we can do is then we just loop back through that hole there to create the loop going around the edge of the book. So that's a nice edge in here. And then all the time, we're just trying to keep this as tight as possible. Now what I want to do is just go through my second hole here, in here, just a thread down in there. So on the underside of the book now, I have a loop there. And what I'm going to do now is go up and under through here. Going back through hole, so it's going to get quite tight in this hole because we're going to go through it just a few times now. I'm going to create a vertical here, like that, and then I'm going to go back round, back down through this hole here again. So again, gets a bit tight. Just pull it through. Take your time. Don't break the needle pulling it through. Okay, just pulling it through here. And then we're nice and tight. And then we should have a lovely corner that we can come back up through the hole here. Again, it gets a bit tight. Just don't pull it too hard. Just take your time and wiggle it. Okay, and then we've got our corner here. So then we've got our nice corner and our thread going through. Now the idea is we just fill in the gaps now. So we look underneath and we have a gap here. So we'll just go back through this hole as well. And then we will end up back in the middle. So there. And now we repeat the whole process on the other side. Okay, so as we've stitched the whole book now, just gone up and down twice, we just need to tie this off. So I keep the thread nice and long, and we just need to tie a knot in here. So just through here. Now you can hide this on the inside, this knot, but it can be a little bit fiddly. So I'm just doing it on the outside for this video. So we'll just pull it through, and then I'm just gonna make it nice and tight, and then there we have it. So there we have it, and I'm just going to snip off my ends here, just make it nice and tidy. We'll take the clips off. And then we have our lovely Japanese bound book. Mainly just need to straighten up a few of the threads here. And there we have our book. Okay, so there we are. Here's my Japanese book here. So there we are. Here's my book here, nice and all finished. So there we are, here's the book, all finished, nice hard cover on it, and that hinge works really nicely, and all the pages here I can just fold back on themselves because it's made with that Art Smooth. We've got that lovely grain direction, and it just makes everything fold really nicely. Really happy with it. I quite like the blue thread actually I picked. I didn't know whether to go yellow or blue, so I went blue. I think it complements it quite nicely. So hope that has been kind of useful, and how to make a Japanese bound book. Like I said, quite nice and easy, bit fiddly, bit messy with the glue and things, but well worth it to get a lovely book like this. Also, don't forget, for bookmaking and things, I can't highly recommend the Art Smooth DUO enough. It is fantastic, and that grain direction guarantee really makes it nice and easy when you're folding the pages over. So well worth having a look at that. And also, please don't forget to subscribe to our channel. And also, at the start of the video, seemed a long time ago now, that I did promise a voucher code that will give you 15% off on lovely Art Smooth papers and all the other Fotospeed papers in our range. So please use the discount code FSYouTube15 and that will give you 15% off on photospeed.com. Hopefully that has given you a start and a yearning to kind of make a book, shall we say, and have a go through it. So until next week, bye-bye.